What's going on, everyone? Today I'm going to talk about how I passed the Security Plus exam in around a month, pretty much. So here is Professor Messer. He is highly recommended by a lot of people. When I was in the military, he was recommended to me by someone, and he had a good reputation in the DoD. So I recommend you guys, especially if you're just starting out, to check his channel out. This is right here, Professor Messer. He usually covers well-known CompTIa exams like A+, Network Plus, Security Plus, as we're going to talk about now, Network Plus. And that's what he pretty much focuses on. He does like monthly reviews and study groups. He has his website where he has test questions, and yeah, he's the go-to resource if you're trying to be skimpy on the book and whatnot. But I'll go into how I studied and my mindset. But first, we're going to go straight into the exam syllabus, and I'm just showing you his front page of his YouTube channel as Professor Messer. I'll leave a link to his website and or to his YouTube in the comment section. But without further ado, let's get into the syllabus. Right, so this is the CompTIa syllabus for Security Plus SYO 701. It consists of maximum of 90 questions, and it has 5 domains. And you can see that domain 1 has the least amount in terms of percentage, whereas domain 4 has the most security operations. So that doesn't mean that, you should concentrate on domain number 4, security operations, and not concentrate on general security concepts. It just means that you should know the frequency of what questions are going to be on what, if that makes sense, right? So moving right along, we have general security concepts. So this is pretty much just going over the things you should know coming into security. This is going over things you should know going into cybersecurity, right? So you have your security control categories, like your managerial, operational, whatnot. You have your control types, such as your preventative, so like your locks or deterrents, like security cameras, stuff like that. And, you go over fundamental security concepts, like, the CIA triad, AAA, so on and so forth, right? Then domain 2 is your threats, vulnerabilities, and mitigations. So you're pretty much, you're identifying your threats and the vulnerabilities, the weaknesses in your systems, and the mitigations, what can stop or at least slow these threats from attacking your vulnerabilities, right? So you're going into your threat actors, so your insider threats, your APTs or your nation states, or your hacktivists or your script kiddies and stuff like that. You're also going into explaining attack threat vectors. So what are the vehicles that the threats come in, whether it's like a random thumb drive or phishing emails, stuff like that. And attack surfaces, attack surfaces could be misconfigured servers or, unhardened, systems, such as having weak passwords or having, an admin that has God rights, stuff like that. So that's number 2. So domain 3 is the security architecture. So this is how you're going to build your security around your IT infrastructure, right? The bare bones, right? So you go into cloud, you learn about the cloud and how to, secure a cloud environment, or a hybrid environment, which is a mixture of cloud and on-prem, or on-prem, which is pretty much a traditional mom and pop shop server room, if you will, and you go into like security principles to secure enterprise infrastructures. So you learn about attack surfaces and what those mean, your security zones, port security, so like how information is being communicated and how that's going to be protected if it needs be, and the different types there are and stuff like that, right? And so on and so forth, right? And then we're going to hit number 4, security operations, which takes up, I believe, 20% of the exam, right? So this is a big one. You're gonna have to learn a lot in this one. So this is the operations part, is how you are going to enact. You have the architecture ready. So this is how you're going to operate and implement the securities that you put in place in your particular organization's infrastructure, right? So you're going into you're going into your security techniques, right? Such as, whether your organization is going to use mobile, in your mobile section of your organization, whether or not you're going to use the BYOD policy, bring your own device, or the COPE, solution, corporate owned but personally used, right? You're going to go into your targets, your hardening targets. So your cloud infrastructures, your routers, your switches, your SCADAs, right? Those power plants have computers too, right? So you're going to go into that and how to secure those and stuff like that, right? And then you explain the implications of, proper hardware, software management and all the other stuff to make sure that, those things are all buttoned up security-wise, right? And you can see this is the biggest one because you have, explaining, alerting, monitoring, vulnerability management, so on and so forth. There's a lot of material to cover in this domain. And then last, you're going to go into security, program management, and oversight. So this is pretty much governance. How are you going to manage the whole orchestra that is cybersecurity or InfoSec in general? And, how are you going to make it a well-oiled machine, right? Because what if the system breaks down, right? What if the whole infrastructure breaks down? You're going to have to come up with a business continuity, right? Because, everything is vulnerable to something, right? What if a hurricane hits or earthquake happens? You're going to have to come up with a disaster recovery plan, right? So on and so forth. And then so that's how you make the security governance of if stuff hits the fan, how are you going to fix it? How are you going to get back on track for the organization, right? And then you have elements of risk management process. So you're talking about risk, right? You're going deep into risk, like risk analysis. So risk appetite, like how much risk can this business take on? Like how much risk can it transfer? How much risk does it have? Can it eat? The lingering risk, stuff like that. So that's domain 5. Pretty straightforward stuff. It might be a little bit foreign for those who are not used to this stuff at all, but it's not too bad. It's just a lot of memorization and probably a little bit of math too, but it's not a big deal. All right, so we're going to talk about the exam, what you're going to do going into the exam. So personally, I would say, get your rest, eat well, make sure you're eating well. Don't overthink the exam, right? Because basically this exam is just testing how well you can remember the information and, I guess, for lack of a better word, regurgitate it, right? It's a very big memorization exam in my opinion, because most of the stuff is like you either know it or you don't, because it's very surface level. It's given this particular scenario, what would be the best answer, and you answer it and you go on with your life. So there's not really a lot of thinking or trick questions per se, at least yet, from what I remember. Because I don't think I mentioned this before, but I did CompTIa 5 years ago. So a lot has changed, but I think the process of how to attack it hasn't. But yeah, just, make sure you have a healthy breakfast, make sure you have good sleep. Also, I'd recommend, if you can, do a test, use a testing center, because it's just more comfortable, and the testing center is made for that. So you more than likely have uninterrupted service, right? As opposed to if you're at home, proctors can be iffy, and I don't know, your mom comes in your room, or your family, if you have a family, or something drops, and the test taker or the proctor could cancel your test or have you reschedule, and that's not very fun. Especially, you're trying to get into IT, you're probably looking for a job, you probably don't have that much money, right? So that's no go. So to cut out as much variables as possible, try to take it at a testing center. Make sure you're ready for the exam. Give yourself, I would say, at least 2 hours if you're a beginner. If you have some IT background, I'd say maybe an hour and a half a day would be good at minimum to study for this exam, to get it done in a month. Personally, what I did was that I pretty much used Professor Messer's exam, or not, sorry, what I'm saying exam. I use his material and I use the book. So I'm old school, right? I like using the book primarily. So what I did was that I read the book back to front one time, and then I read the book again, but highlighting it. And when the first run around, I did all the assessments and whatever. Then whenever I had time, when I was to and from work, I would use Professor Messer's stuff, or if I want a break, just have it on YouTube going, right? Just to have a change of pace from reading a book. And then I bought his exam tests. So his exam questions. So his exam questions are a godsend. So from last time I did it, which was 5 years ago, so it could have changed now. He had his package came with 200 tests, 100 question tests, I believe, right? A and B tests, right? Practice tests. And his tests are harder than the actual exam. So if you get 80% on his practice test, you're golden, 100% golden, no worries in the world. I think I got like 60s or 50s in both tests, and I still end up passing, because it was like, man, I'm gonna fail. If Professor Messer's tests are like this, I'm gonna fail. But then when I took the test, I was like, man, this is easy, right? Now, granted, I had background with the studying the book material, so I guess that kind of helped too. But this is coming from someone who came from aircraft maintenance, so I had zero experience in actual IT or ITs, especially in InfoSec, right? So it can be done, getting this done in a month. It can definitely be done, right? But yeah, I think that's all I have for today on this topic. This exam is not hard by any means, right? If you put in the time, you can get it done. And I'll leave the links for Professor Messer's stuff again in the comment section. And I'm just doing this, I think I'm gonna do this series more, where I'm gonna just put out stuff that I think will help people, right? Because outside of, I think, Security Plus, when I did like the pen test or CISSP and stuff like that, I didn't really have a lot of resources. So I think I'm just going to do videos, maybe a couple of tutorials and stuff, to help people understand more, right? Because there's some tutorials and stuff on YouTube or on the internet in general that are just not that quality, or very dry and boring. And I just want to help people who are seeking to get a better understanding of certain concepts in IT and cybersecurity in general, specifically, because that's my specialty. But anyways, guys, if you have any questions, or if you have any concerns or comments, leave it in the comment section below. And if I said anything wrong, or if you have anything to add. And yeah, I think that's all I have for today. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.